Testing, testing. Hello, is anyone out there? Can anyone hear me? All right, well, I guess I'll just get started and see if anybody starts chiming in. Oh, good deal. Appreciate that, Adam. All right, so I don't know, should we wait for more people to jump in or just get started? I'm still somewhat new to this. I think I'll just do some sketching till we get a few more people here on the chat window. Let's do it. Yeah, I'll do a little quick warm-up piece anyways. So this one's going to be on proportions and a little bit on anatomy. Um, I want to say proportions and anatomy, but anatomy is so broad. I mean, even proportions gets a bit heavy, but anatomy is, you could fill up multiple live streams with various parts of anatomy. So just start off with a warm-up sketch though. Hola, Antonio. Yeah, so I just got back from doing a Motor City convention, and it's funny because it kind of warmed me up for this kind of thing because this is kind of how it is at a convention. You just sketch in front of people. So figured, hey, live stream's pretty much the same thing. So might as well just start doing some live streams. See how it works out, anyways. And you guys can go ahead and start commenting and let me know, like, what proportion issues do you face with your drawings? So we're going to cover proportions and some anatomy. I know a big request that I've been getting more and more is, how to draw the forearms, things like that, forearm muscles. But when it comes to proportions, what are some of the things that you face that you'd like to see us cover in this live stream? Anybody? Okay, apparently I'll have to save that question for later. Oh, okay. My issues are with hands, necks, and shoulders. Well, you can see I'm working on the neck and shoulder right here, so I can give you some tips on that immediately since I'm already there. Um, the only real thing I could say about, this is an angle shot, so you almost have to picture it like, let's just draw a box and pretend that we're going to a vanishing point. You don't have to get this far into it, but if you're ever struggling with something, you go back to the basics, and you have to perceive that it diminishes in size as it goes back. So that's why you hide this shoulder, hide this uh, trapezius, whatever it is, in the shoulder like that. So you have to perceive that it, recedes into space and gets smaller. As far as a front view of this, um, oh sweet, good to have you, Late Gum and Brian. Um, so yeah, so like as it recedes back, it does this number. But then the other thing, so you want to draw this shoulder up here larger and more present, so it just conveys the depth a little more. And this is a funny one right here. Like, see how if I draw that chest line down like this, uh, it looks like he's got somewhat of a flatter chest. But then if I just angle that, just by changing this one line really, but you would change the other ones as well, and I just angle that a lot further, all of a sudden you give him a lot more of a bowed out chest. So it's funny how just little adjustments like that can really change your artwork, which that looks a bit too bubbly. But what you would do is just make it look more angular. If you're trying to chisel them up, throw like an angle right there and try to like you bring this line back, maybe a little chisel back like that. But it's just funny how when you change just a few little lines, you can give a total different shape or dynamic to a certain part of anatomy or whatever. I think that's too much. So let me just bring it more straight down like that. And then another proportion. Yeah, I don't know, Adam. Hopefully it'll be a weekly thing. I just got to see how it goes. If I can get some following to this and it can become beneficial, then yeah, definitely. So let's see. One of the proportion issues that you can figure for the neck and the head, obviously we're all very different proportions, so you gotta have to just use your judgment a little bit on this. But the head is generally 1/3 the width of the shoulder. So if you were to set like two heads next to the head, something like this, looks funny. And then I always go a bit even past that because I just like a really wide shoulder base, for a superhero, dude or whatever. So this is like a mix between what's really the proportions and what style you lean towards. What do you want to see in your own artwork? Do you want your characters to be really V-like, like V'd out like this? As far as the neck, I think the neck is generally about half the width of the head, somewhere around about in there. So you could split the distance of the head and pretty much just add that down to where the top of the clavicles go. Something like that. So that's kind of the proportions I'll generally use. Another thing that I think is real handy to do is draw like this right here. Like focus on just the shoulders and the chest and draw that in the way that you perceive it in whatever pose. Like this. And really focus on those parts for a while. Then get into adding, your arms and, your other stuff on there. But it's neat when you separate elements of your drawing like that and you really just get specific with it. You can kind of, in my opinion, you can study it a bit better and really see how that stuff works. And then add your other parts in there. Excuse me. Always make the comparison of like picture that you rip the arms and legs off your superhero characters, because that's what you want to do. Well, you don't want to rip the arms and legs off your superhero characters, but probably decreases the value. But you want to think of it like that because you're breaking down the human body and the way that you perceive your drawings, and the more that you do that, the easier it gets to kind of piece it all back together. What's up, Fen Network and HD Art? Good to have you. Yeah, so hopefully, if this does do well and people enjoy it, and we can get some good viewership to it or whatever, I'd like to do it every week. I'm thinking, I was saying Thursdays at 7, but I think Wednesdays at 5 would be better, Eastern Standard Time. I'm just trying to mix it in with, any commercial jobs I have and work that I got to do. So, okay, so what else? Proportions on hands. I'll show you a good one to remember, as simple as it is for hands. First off, just picture the hand as a bit of a wedge shape like this. Like here's the palm area, here's the knuckle from the thumb, and then comes up like this. And the thumb generally, I'm looking down at my own hand right now. The fingers come up. The proportion that I always try to remember with the fingers in relationship to the hand that I think helps to get it right, or within reason, and then you just kind of keep adjusting it, is the fingers themselves are about the equal distance as the entire or the rest of the hand. So if you look down at your hand, you can kind of see that it's not exact. I would say it's a little bit higher on the part of the where the fingers connect, but it's something like this. I'm just blocking this in really, really ugly right now. And then from that you can kind of use that halfway mark as a good way to do the rest of your hand poses. Like obviously this is a very basic hand structure, but then you use that same idea, and then you gotta perceive what it would look like perspectively. So I'll do this real basic. Just to get the idea down. That's pretty ugly, but hopefully you get the idea. All right, let's take that and shrink it down, put it to the side. Okay, so there's our high five right there. Let me read this real quick. I have trouble attaching legs to the body. I can draw a good torso and good legs, but I have trouble making them look good together. Yeah, that's a tricky one for all of us. I'll get to that one right after the hand here. So same thing about the hand is like now when you draw it perspectively, you can always kind of use your real basic sketch as a guide. Even though that hand looks horrible, I'm gonna have to adjust that. But then you just remember that even in a foreshortened perspective, you get the 3 segments to the finger, get the knuckle up here. The knuckles, a big mistake that a lot of us make, we'll draw the knuckles straight across. They rotate pretty hardcore, pretty decently, depending on the pose of the hand. And the hands are a great thing to study just when you're bored and you're not doing anything else. Study hands, because there's so much expressiveness to the hands, and there's so many forms that they can take. And to tell a good story, everybody immediately thinks, well, I got to draw good faces, and that's true. But next, right after faces and getting eyes right and things like that, I would say you got to go right to hands, because so many people talk with their hands. It's very much a huge part of storytelling. So to get your dynamics and your storytelling and stuff, I think hands are extremely important. And then it's all important, but you gotta go for what you can. I think that you learn a lot by drawing hands well. And then past that, it's like, body gestures and the way that people, they express with their body, with weight, and, dynamics that way are very important as well. Get rid of some of these sketch lines so you can see the drawing, hopefully. A good way to always point the fingers is drawing the fingernails. So it kind of gives you this quick, depthy look to an otherwise boring sketch. Something like that. You said you were using your hand as reference. Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, I'm a lefty. Yeah, I constantly look down at my hand. I actually have a mirror in front of my drawing table. I actually got this tip from, not personally, but watching videos. Mark Silvestri, one of my favorite artists out there, and he was saying, the best thing you can do is get one of those little mirrors that are on the what do you call it? The mechanical arm type mirror. I don't know what to call it, but those movable arms, and you put a mirror on that and put it against your art table. Or what I did here is I just had a mirror mounted right next to my workstation, just in case I got to check my hair while I'm drawing. But no, it's great for looking at things like that, and you could do certain hand poses and and things, just real quick studies in the mirror. Um, facial expressions, you name it. So it's just a really important technique to get used to doing. Yeah, adding values. Fin Network says adding values to my sketches is a huge challenge for me. Um, yeah, it just comes with time. It's cross hatching basically is what you're talking about, right? When you're talking about shading. Um, I think the way that it works is if you get the line work down first, you're get good at drawing and creating your artwork with decent line value and line weight, and then focus on the cross hatching. You don't want to jump into lots of cross hatching until you're ready. And I've talked about this in other videos. I think a lot of people tend to do that, and their art suffers for it because they try to overcompensate with cross hatching and unnecessary lines, or maybe they don't know where the lines go yet. Um, so yeah, just take your time with that. Think of it like this: if you ever study like Disney artists, I think it's always great to study Disney artwork. They put so much down with so little line work, and that's really important because they're focused on the expressiveness of the line. And um, like one thing that I was watching, they do this with painting contests. They'll try to paint an apple with as many as little brush strokes as possible. So if you were to picture that you were trying to draw an apple, this is going to probably come out horrible, but and say I was trying to do as little brush strokes or line strokes as I could. Yeah, it looks more like a pumpkin, but so that you focus on like simplicity, and how quick can you get that down without doing very much, not work, but putting the lines in the right place, I guess. I'm going to delete that because that's pretty ugly. Oh, yeah, yeah. I grew up with Disney too. That's actually the first place I can remember really wanting to work when I was a kid. I think we all did, especially, if you went to Disney World, it was just like, you know, a mind blowing experience. So, um, but yeah, so just focus on that and do that with faces, do it with everything. So, try to draw a face and go, and you can put down some rough sketch lines if you have to first, but try to just like, practice in your sketchbook of doing faces with as little lines as possible. Just a very overly animated or just simplistic style. And what's neat about it is it'll kind of teach you a little bit more about expressions, or you can focus on that a little bit better and not get so caught up in the overwork that we tend to do with American comics. Like we get in there and want to shade everything and go all crazy. And sometimes it's good just to do a caricature and really just get it down really fast and have fun with it. And it could teach you a lot about, your own style and, changing it up a bit. So, something like that or whatever. Okay, so what are some other proportion things I can show you? Um, oh, I got these on a different layer. Okay, so what I wanted to start off with, since we got a few people watching now. Um, all the proportions kind of start off with the 8 heads tall thing, or if you like 7.5 heads tall, whatever you like in your work. But what I'll do is take this one and we'll do, let's see, duplicate layer. Command E, duplicate layer. Command E, duplicate layer. Okay, so what I'm doing is just getting at 8 heads tall, and I tend to lean towards 8 to 8.5 heads tall. Let me move this over. Is that 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. I can count to 10. I can count to 20 when my shoes are off. Let's see. Hey, Rob and everyone else. What's up, HX Kong? What's up, Leolus? Let me read this real quick. Hey, Rob, I have a question. If you construct a person with cubes, when do you know if the lines vanish hard like if you would draw a cube near a vanishing point and 2-point perspective. And then Alex says, hey, I like your work. Appreciate that. Oh, yeah, if your dad gave you some old Jack Kirby stuff, that's cool. I mean, if you're talking like the real books, hold on to those. Um, and yeah, Jack Kirby's an amazing inspiration for all of us. I love his work the more and more I study it. Um, but yeah, as far as the cube question there, basically that's just how um, how close you put the vanishing point to something. For instance, if I was drawing a character here and I have the vanishing point here versus here, right? Like that. Uh, Obviously, if he's on an angle and I draw the vanishing point to here, everything's going to recede into space really quickly. This one back leg here is going to get really small, and this arm back here is going to be a lot smaller than this side over here, right? All you're basically saying is that you're in a more foreshortened perspective. Like, if you do something that extreme, I don't know how to explain it other than you're just going to foreshorten everything harder because of where you place the vanishing point. I don't know that this is an accurate depiction. I would say that usually vanishing points should be further away, and there should be a slower transition from the depth of the character, if that makes sense. But essentially, that's all you're going to do. You're just going to move that vanishing point over, and you're going to try to envision those cubes receding to that point and kind of compress your drawing, I guess. Yeah, Ivan Reese is, or I don't know if I'm saying that right. Ivan Reese, yeah, his work's amazing. Okay, so off the 8 heads tall here, I'll draw and like I said, I go from this to 8.5, and basically, so here's the first head right here. You just use this as a general guide and placement to start to figure out the rest of your body proportions. Now, if this is a really wide and stout character, then you just show that by drawing a really wide upper torso. And this is all just depending on what kind of characters you really like to draw. But so you get the legs in here like this, kind of bowed out a little bit. They kind of do a bit of a reverse bend a little bit. So, and obviously this upper body is way too wide. But you use this as an initial starting point, and then I always tend to, place things a little bit high, like the pelvic here could probably go down a bit. But that 8 heads tall will give you your rest of your measurements, and then as far as that, you just start using other things to move the parts around. Like basically the elbows go right to where the waist is. So there's a relationship there. The arms go like, you do this like reverse lightning bolt or lightning bolt pattern. It just helps you to remember not to draw the arms straight down. Oh yeah, you're welcome, Leilis. And yeah, I know that's what it looks like too, like a very stocky character. And you can do that when you're drawing like, even like the Hulk. You'll give him this little head, and you draw him just very wide. So there's lots of different characters, so that this will all work for somebody. And it's one of the reasons why I really like digitals, because it's so easy to move this stuff around. So a lot of times I don't, get the sketch right just off the bat, but I'll just keep moving stuff around until I get it right. And this is where I said, like, there's 8 heads tall right there, but I'll generally go over that. I like the characters to have really long legs, so I generally go about 8.5. And I think in real life proportions, I think we're only about 7.5 heads tall. But to me that just looks a little bit boring, so just over accentuate it. Another thing to keep in mind with proportions too is generally the arm from the wrist to the elbow is usually the same distance from the rest of the way up on the arm, like from the bottom of the bicep here to the top of the deltoid shoulder. So that's another one. I think characters always look a little bit more impressive when they have a little bit longer forearms. And one of the things that I think helps the arm to look cool is you can make the bicep and tricep larger, but you need to compensate by making the forearm overly elongated. And that's just the way I see it. You know, I'm sure we do it all a little bit differently, but it seems to balance out that way. Like, you know, it's weird how the proportions of the arms work. It's real easy to make one thing too big, and then it throws the whole arm out of whack. Yeah, they got his shoulders too wide. And I think the head's sitting right on top of the shoulders, so it needs to be more like this. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, as I start to, you know, refine the artwork, I'll just start moving things around quite a bit. You know, the hands generally will sit right about halfway of the thigh. Something like this. I missed your question. Which one was it? Quick question. Who to find a name? What? Quick question. Who to find a name for your superhero and his secret identity? Did you mean how instead of who? And hey, you're alive. Yeah. Oh, hey, you're live. Sorry. I thought you said hey, you're alive. Like, yeah, last time I checked, I am alive. Um, yeah, I think he meant how do you find a name for your superhero and a secret identity? You know, I think it's a mix. You know, you always have like different ways of coming up with characters. You can do plot first, design first, whatever you feel comfortable with. But it's kind of a mix. You know, it's hard to say. Um, I would always just start drawing and coming up with ideas and then character names and all that. But that doesn't mean that's the right way. I think it just tend to lean on that because I'm more of a visual type. So, you know, being an illustrator, that's the way I design and create characters. But I would say a writer does it, you know, quite the opposite, where they, you know, write the stories and think of everything first and then come up with the visuals secondary. But yeah, I've always been more visual, so that's the way I do it. See, and like right there, as I shrink it down, that does not look right. I would still want the legs to be larger. Let me see if that fixes it. Yeah, it's a little better. And then, you know, I'd soft erase it and keep refining it. Name all the characters after yourself. Yeah, that's a good idea. At least you won't forget their name then, hopefully. Alright, so let's see. Let's move this guy over. Okay, so, and then I'll try doing a woman with the same proportions. You know, I think I kind of slaughtered that guy right there, but see if I can do a little bit better on this one. Um, and, you know, keep in mind, too, if you are doing just an angular shot, it's the same concept. You know, you just tilt the body. On a woman, I want the legs to be pretty long. Probably even do it where one leg's kind of bent like this. Yeah, see, I'll probably go right past that. So I guess I lean more towards 8.5, 9 heads tall, really. I guess I don't look at it enough, and the more that I draw these characters, the more that I want to elongate their limbs. It just looks, to me, it looks more um, fantasy or, cool. Let's bring this arm back like this. All right, any other proportion things you guys want me to cover? Or do you want me to get into drawing some more muscles, or what? What would you like to see here? Panel flow? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could go over how to texture stuff as well. Drawing scenery and environment. Are you saying perspective? Okay. Yeah, I'll go over some tips for perspective as well. Yeah, and feet can be tricky. It's just basically, let me see. You know, I would say with feet, you start off like this, where you let's do it from a slight angle, where you break it down into the main shapes, which would be like, here's the heel, here's the top of the foot, here's where the toes angle outward. In a boot, it's gonna have like a thinner front, I don't know, thinner tip like this, maybe a little sole at the bottom. So obviously it's gonna get a lot easier to do it in a boot type setup like this. A couple little wrinkles of the material, the ankle. That would be like the basic boot setup or whatever. Oh my goodness, how about hair shape? Okay, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get to all these things. Let me try to attack one at a time. Um, so yeah, I'd practice doing shapes like that, because that's predominantly what you're gonna see. You're not gonna see a whole lot of barefoot superheroes unless you're drawing like the Hulk or somebody. Um, but the only difference there is toes are just like fingers. So you basically I always do it like this, where I do, if I have to, if I'm trying to figure something out, I do one at a time. So if I got like a toe like this, I picture almost that I'm drawing a finger, but it's a little bit squattier and gnarlier, something. And then there's only what, two knuckles, right? Last time I looked at my toes, there was only two knuckles, but and then you just, you do that. You got the big one, you got some little ones off to the side, and they get real stubby and kind of tucked behind the other ones. And the last one's usually all beat up and he got picked on his whole life. I don't know. And you got the big bulbous part of the foot right there. And then they immediately go up. So it's just like they're, you know, hands, but they're just misshapen hands, I guess. It's a pretty ugly foot, but I don't know. I don't think feet are that good looking anyways. So that's essentially how I do them. But luckily for us, you know, most of them are going to be in shoes. Yeah, I mean, I could do hair shading. I guess just so I'm kind of like getting enough of what everybody's expecting. Let me do it either or right now. Do you want me to do hair shading or perspective? Just a couple people chime in so I know. Some of these it'll probably be helpful to, you know, save for later videos because it'll you know, they'll just run too long if I try to approach everything. All right, we got one for shading. Yeah, there you go. Just hide all your feet behind scenery like Rob Liefeld. Man, that guy's never gonna live it down. You know, he did just have a huge success with Deadpool. Everybody, I mean, come on, you can let off him now. He made Deadpool for Pete's sakes. Shading. All right, we got two for shading. So let's just go with that. We're going to do hair shading. So let me hide these layers real quick. So let's see. With hair shading, let me first do like a mannequin head to give us something to work from. Something like this. All right, so here's our mannequin. I won't draw a face or nothing like that. Just give us something to work from. Okay. He made Deadpool, but he didn't make Deadpool cool. I don't know. That character got pretty good results at the box office. I was digging it. But yeah, I'm sure it was a lot of people involved that really made that character come to life over the years. Okay, so yeah, so the hair, you know, there's lots of ways to do hair. I would say the things to keep in mind is that, you know, you want it to always look like flowing strands. Let me turn this one way down. Flowing strands, you want it to interlace. So a lot of times it looks like people do this a lot, and they wonder why the hair doesn't look good. It's because they got all the lines in succession and all the same weight. You know, so you got to interweave it kind of. You know, and obviously there's lots of different hairstyles, but and then you got to pretty much make it look like certain areas are thicker locks of hair and certain areas are thinner strands of hair just kind of flowing in and out of it. So a good way to do that is lots of different directions of lines, purposely spacing those lines out and thinking in terms of like flowing ribbons and little beauty lines at the end of your pulls. So like I heard that from on one of David Finch's videos, and it made a lot of sense. Like if you go like this and then just do a little flip at the end, those are beauty lines. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but that's all I remember him saying. And then the other thing is these kind of like where it looks like an overlap, or it flips over and back, and then just give it some nice curvature. You know, just remember that's always kind of going back and around itself or something. And when in doubt, draw really lightly, kind of get the idea in place, and then come back and refine it and add thicker lines. Yeah, I don't know about anatomy books. Some of the books that I always recommend are Bern Hogarth. Those are the ones that help me out the most. So I recommend all the Bern Hogarth books. Okay, and then as far as shading this hair, so let me zoom up a little bit more. You know, just kind of get in here and darken some areas in. And at first when I start shading hair, I do a lot of separation shading. I don't shade all in one spot, like real heavily. I don't sit here and, you know, shade all the way across the hair like this or something. You can. That's one way after you get enough of this down. But at first, I'm trying to see where certain parts of the hair are up higher than other parts. So I just get in here real kind of, I don't want to say gently, but kind of gently, and just kind of pick apart how this hair is overlapping. And when in doubt, stuff like this, just make sure you got a picture of some hair magazine or a woman with nice hair sitting off to the side as you do this. You're gonna stylize it your own way as you try to recreate it, and you're making it a comic book style anyways. So it's not like you're cheating by looking at that stuff. So make sure you just pull from some reference and give it your own style as you convert it to line work. So I kind of keep repeating this process where I find little parts and add some shading in there, some line breaks. I want to make sure to have the hair kind of roll over to where the part would be. And I think one of the things to really be careful of is how you draw the part in the hair. It's good to not overly detail that, and you want to make sure that the hair goes up high enough and rolls back down to where you don't see the part. Because if you study pictures, you very rarely see somebody's part, and it definitely doesn't go straight down their head. Especially in women, they have this, flowing, billowing hair usually, or some hairdos. So it's good to like make sure you don't over accentuate the part in the hair. I know I've had that problem quite a bit when I was trying to get, figure out how I wanted to draw hair in my characters. And let me know when I'm doing this, guys and gals, or if this is making sense. If there's something I'm doing and you're not quite getting it, just ask a question. And I'll try to look over and address it as I can. Yeah, I can relate to slowly finding the love for drawing again. I was out of comics when I was doing a business that I had for about close to 15 years, and I still drew. I've always drawn, but I wasn't as intense about it, and I really started regretting the direction I was heading, and I made a big change just recently, and I'm pursuing the art insanely heavily again. So I can relate to that, getting back to it kind of thing, and so happy I made the decision. It's just it's funny how sometimes it's so easy for life to get in the way when you're trying to be an artist. It is a balancing act, that's for sure. Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind when shading hair like this is if the hair is darker, you're just going to add more of this heavy shading. Like at this stage, it would almost be like the hair is a little bit of a lighter hairdo, like maybe blonde or whatever. And then if she has darker hair, you're just going to add a lot more of the shading and the line work to really bring that out. Oh, you just started teaching yourself how to draw 6 months ago? That's cool. Yeah, and I'm just now getting back into it heavily, and I'm 40 right now, so it's I don't think it's never too late, um, and you learn so much by really dedicating to it, that I think you could do it any time in your life and still be happy with your results. I remember when I was younger, I always compared myself at an early age to what other artists were doing at an early age, or wherever they were at. And looking back, I think that was so not accurate. You shouldn't do that. You don't need to do that. Yeah, it is a struggle. Oh, thanks, Kevin. Glad you could pop in. Yeah, I know, man. It's hard. I have to mix this in with my day-to-day operations and my family life. So I had to pick Wednesday at 5. Unfortunately, the boss lady told me I had to do it about this time. Yeah, Paul, you could have my talent. My talent is a refined talent. It's not some natural amazing thing. It's something I refined over years and years of practice. So you can definitely get there, man. You just gotta dedicate the time. I draw about 7, 8 hours a day, and sometimes a lot more than that. So just repetition. I think the real part that people confuse talent for is the passion. I definitely have the passion to draw obsessively. So that's where the rest of it kind of starts to fit together because I don't get bored of it like some people would. Some people would probably draw for 6 hours and go, I'm gonna do something else. I'm bored. But I actually get more excited. Sometimes I have a hard time stopping. I was just trying to read some of these comments real quick. Man, I don't know how people do this. Like, there's only 31 people right now, and I don't know how I can keep up with these comments and draw. So let me stop and read these real fast. Um, I knew I wanted to create visual storytelling since the fourth grade. I was not mature enough to dedicate myself. Yeah, that's true. Dedication's a huge part of it. Don't even know what talent is. Yeah, That's not true. You're talented. I've seen your stuff. Schedule in specific time blocks to do studies. Yeah, those are all great points. Where's the strokes end in a long tail instead of a definite point? I don't understand that, Van. What is it? Where the strokes end in a long tail instead of a definite point? Are you talking about the hair, the way the hair is being drawn? Let me get that last part. Um, but yeah, it is all about dedication, really. I mean, if you talk to any like working comic book artists, they work insane hours to produce these books. When you talk about people like um, Ivan Reese, I don't know how they say his name, but these amazing artists that put in all this jammed in detail into their books. Those guys are working obsessively. I mean, yeah, some of them are extremely fast, but detail is detail. You're not gonna fly through those pages unless you really know how to take some shortcuts and you got a great inker that'll pick up on where you're throwing down t- you know hints of it, detail or whatever. It just takes a lot of time to produce that stuff. So those guys, it seems like every time I talk to a pro artist that does that type of detail, that they work 10, 12, and 14-hour days to do it. And then there's just a few guys that are exceptionally fast, like the Jim Lees and stuff like that. Or you get people that actually uh, chop down their style quite a bit. They do you see a lot of this um, looser styles these days, and it's probably just because of the sheer amount of time. And it makes more sense to do something a little more simplistic and get a book knocked out on time and not kill themselves over it. Which is probably what I should do because I try to over detail my pages, and it's like, I don't know. Half the time I think, man, I should just be going faster and a looser style and get those books knocked out. Yeah, Capullo's a great example. I mean, that guy just packs in the detail and the texture and stuff like that, and just does some amazing stuff. And I'm sure he's really fast, but I couldn't imagine him doing over a page and a half a day. I mean, maybe 2 pages a day when he's rocking out and in the zone or something. I don't know, but Man, that just seems really fast for that amount of detail. Okay, what else? Any other kind of texturing you want me to do? Is there any more questions on the hair here, or do you want me to try something else? Oh, and the other last little thing with hair, after you get enough of the detail in here, you can do like the little strands that are kind of loosely flipping around. That always adds a little bit more realism to it or whatever. And I'll usually ink this in, and then I'll come back with a thin black and a thin white and do these little flips of hair. Feather texture. Okay, I can try that. I don't know. I'd probably look at a feather, but I'll see what I can do there. A feather texture. What a strange request. Just kidding. That's not strange. All right. This is probably gonna be a horrible feather. Certain things, just keep in mind, I would pull reference for certain things. I think feathers go like this, don't they? Great, you put me on the spot, and I'm gonna draw a bad feather. That's what I got on the live stream to do. Embarrass myself. Yeah, I was pretty much self-taught, but I read lots of books. I take in lots of YouTube videos. So I can't really, I don't know if self-taught is really the right word or phrase. It always seems like when somebody says self-taught that you just miraculously could learn everything without looking at anything else. I study everything around me in books and videos, and I just came back from a comic book convention. I was just studying all kinds of other artworks. So yeah, I mean, you could say self-taught, but I don't know. I just don't think it's entirely self-taught. I just pay attention, which actually that doesn't even sound right, because I have a hard time paying attention. But I just study a variety of other artists, I guess. I think that's your best way to learn. I'll go through phases where I, study McFarlane's work really heavily, or Dale Keown, or God, I don't know how you say that one either. Yeah, informally taught. Yeah, I didn't go to a college or a school like that. I'm a bad example when it comes to all that, because I didn't even do well when I was in school. I just wasn't a school type. I wasn't an academic type kid. I was drawn when I should have been studying. So, in a sense, I was studying for art in school, but not in the general sense of the words. Yeah, so I don't know if this is how you do a feather, but this is how I would do a feather. But I almost guarantee it would come out a lot better if I was looking at a picture right now. So, just when in doubt, whenever it's something that you're not as comfortable with, that's when you go to your reference. And then, if you don't get it right the first time, draw it 5 more. You'll eventually get it. It seems like there's like darker parts, right? They're usually like depending on the bird, probably. So I would probably just illustrate the feather by using feathered lines. Sounds silly, but feathered lines, just thick to thin, like that. So just repeat that and texturize the feather with feathered lines. Funny how that works. And I think they'll generally have like a funky edge, right? Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, that's how I would draw a feather. Not the best feather probably, but don't they have like little strands at the bottom too or something? I think they have they're not always perfect, so they have like a broken up side or something like that. Yeah, so I just keep playing with it till I got it right, but something like that. All right, any other requests? Any tips? Any tips for how to learn by looking at other artists' work? Like tracing is obviously not especially helpful since you don't actually do the normal process when they do that. Actually, Brian, I'd probably say that might not be totally accurate. I'm not saying trace like the perimeter of the artist, but it's okay to break down the artist's work, and this is what I mean. I'll do a quick like frame or something or comic panel, and this is what I'll do. I'll look at, and I don't necessarily trace it as much as I'll study it. So I'll look at like say, uh, an artist that I'm just amazed with, and I'll look at how they break down a scene. So you'll see stuff like this, where like say, I don't know, you got a character, you know, like this, and see like, all right, for instance, that arm's already in the wrong place, right? And this is where I have flaws in my own style of how I break stuff down. But so what I'll do is I'll study the way they would do this scene, and a good or better artist or one that I admire might take this same scene and might grab this character and really scale him up and tilt him more for drama, make it to where you just barely get the face in the scene. Um, Let me see. So what I'll do is I'll study their work and I'll notice how they compose stuff, and how they like, all right, see how I drew the arm out like this and like this? It's a very boring arm pose. So a more seasoned artist might take that and go, no, you don't want the arm there. That looks fake. Like nobody would just hold their arm out like that. So they take it and they've gotten better where they recede the anatomy and they draw this. They know when to hide stuff in a shot, So they know when to like tilt certain parts of the anatomy and where to put the muscles in comparison to one another. So I'll study that. So I'm not necessarily tracing their work as much as I'm just looking at the way that they place things and the way that they might break their scenes down. So say this is like character's ticked off. He's leaned over into, kind of an angry pose. How they might draw the back of the ear and where they place it. Because, it's funny, like a lot of times you kind of do these like little tricks when you illustrate. Like it's not so much that you draw everything perfectly as much as you sometimes just place things in the right spot with the right angle, and it looks more convincing because you're, I don't know how to explain it, just because your placement's better, so it's not always drawing everything to perfection. So yeah, and I just like how certain artists can do that so well. So they do this line of sight thing, they place the objects just the right way, they place their shapes of shadows in just the right way where the scene is more dynamic. So I guess I'll study that. I'll just kind of look at how they do that, not trace their work. Break it down into larger shapes and pieces and just build it back up with your own style. Because you don't want to sit there and get in the habit of tracing somebody else's work because it might just make you a bit weaker as an artist. Not. I'm sure you'll learn something in that process. There's nothing wrong with that, but as long as you don't pass it off as your own. But then by breaking it down and doing your own thing, you'll learn a lot more, I think. So one of the things that I really like studying about other artists is the way that they gesture, the way that they, put feeling into their anatomy and their body poses, which is something I struggle with. So, and I've said this before in my other videos, like a lot of times when you find something that really appeals to you in somebody else's work, I think that's a bit of a calling card. I think that what's really happening there is you're recognizing that there's something that you're lacking in your own style. So you're feeling called upon to study that in their work. So when you see something and you go, man, the way they do faces is amazing, that's your calling card to study that. And that's just my opinion, but that's something I kind of do now whenever I find something that really resonates with me on a certain artist's work. The way that Frazetta would paint these amazing kind of misty backgrounds that almost look like dreamscapes. The reason I'm so impressed with that is probably because I need to figure out in my own art style, how I can incorporate that a little bit, or what's really so cool about that, you know. So it's just something that I've been doing more is latching onto that with other artists. As I do this really horrible, his leg's like way up into his. I was trying to make it look lifted up, but it's actually looking pretty funky. How to approach? Let me read these real quick. I've been able to read a few of these. Um, how to approach learning the fundamentals? Like I get told constantly what they are, like anatomy, perspective, proportion, values, etc. But how? How do I approach anatomy, for example? I kind of been talking about that. Anatomy is just something that you break down. All of those things are composition. Um, you know, you can't expect to, like, if you try to take it all on at once, it's just overwhelming. You'll get discouraged. You'll think that it's too much. You know, you basically break everything down. Like if I was going to put a city back here, or a set of buildings, I wouldn't draw it. I wouldn't start with the window and do another window and another window and another one. And I would probably go crazy if I did that. But what I would do is I would break it down into a more simplistic understanding. So I would draw this all back to a 1 point perspective. I'd do these lines off it like this. I would throw in first larger shapes. While I was doing this, I'd be looking at buildings, because buildings aren't my strong suit. So if I know something's not my strong suit, I'm not going to do it from memory. I'm going to do it from reference, and I'm going to use what I know about breaking things down to simplify the process. And then I'm going to get in here and slowly add in details. And the other thing that is important to do when you're doing something like this is to remember that, where's your focal point? If our focal point's right here between these two characters, why am I going to spend an absorbent amount of time detailing all the little textures and windows? I'm going to do enough of it to make it look convincing and nice, but I'm not going to spend 3 hours into detailing these buildings. So you have to just simplify it. So a lot of what comics are, in my opinion, I'm not saying I know it all or anything like that, but is simplifying certain things to tell a story in a reasonable amount of time. Yeah, and just break everything down into digestible, bite-sized pieces. Like, uh, don't try to study it all. Sometimes it's easier to uh, approach something that's difficult, like say anatomy, and for 1 week solid, just study forearms. Draw the forearm in every conceivable pose. Sit there and take pictures of you making different forearm poses and draw them like crazy. Like so. You got the forearm, and it looks like, all right, for instance, I could probably draw a decent forearm from memory without drawing a whole lot of basic building blocks, right? Just because I've done it enough, I should be able to. I probably still won't get it perfect, but whatever. It's comics. It doesn't have to be perfect. So we'll say that's a forearm, right? And I'm sure I didn't get all those muscles in just the right spot, but it's in the realm of believability or whatever. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but we'll say that's a forearm, right? Now, to get to that part where I was comfortable to draw that, I drew it a bunch of times. And if I was drawing it and I didn't feel comfortable, I would go to reference. But if not, I would start more basic and just a cylinder that tapers down to where the wrist is. I would draw a little angle for the elbow, and I would just slowly break that down in shapes that I can remember. All these are just quick little shapes that I can remember and throw in later, so I can draw a quick forearm. And then I can go back in and add some little line work or whatever I want to do to spruce it up and give it some style and make it my own. But that's essentially all I'm doing. I'm just throwing in some quick little shapes. But the tricky part is when you take that same thing and you have to angle it, and you got to see which way the muscles go when, like when it's coming at you or something, or You know, so you got the shoulder up here, the bicep, and then the forearms coming out towards camera. So this is where they get a little bit trickier because you have to perceive, you know, where does this muscle go when it's over here at this angle. But again, this is where studying from reference is so important, you know, and taking your own pictures if you have to. You know, a lot of great artists out there work from photos. I think people, especially in comics, people almost forget that, or they think that, no, the really great ones, just they can draw everything right out of their head. And yet, to us, they appear that way because they've been doing it forever, and there's certain things they can just pull out of their head. But there's a lot of it that they'll pull from reference, and I guarantee you they all have about, I don't know, 20 arm poses they know just from memory, and then there's probably still a couple that they shy away from when drawing in front of people. I mean, I can't promise you that, but I would say that's probably the case. 'Cause I know I do it. I go for ones that I can draw easily from memory, and you know, then there's ones I'm like, I better not do that one at a convention. Yeah, sorry, Rick. I tried to broadcast it, but yeah, you missed it. Because I'm coming up to an hour and 6 minutes, so I can't do a whole lot more. Yeah, thanks for the cool comments, everybody. I'm starting to read through a couple of those. Quick question: what do you think of collaborations, and would you consider doing one with someone who does not have a decent subscriber base? Oh, you're saying for YouTube collaborations. I try to do whatever I can. Yeah, and Proco's got some good videos as well. I can't even say your name, Xanderium. I'm not even gonna try. Sorry about that. But yeah, he's got some good videos. And yeah, collaborations. I do what I can. I don't think it's so much of a subscriber based thing that motivates me. It's just that I'm so short on time. I'm already trying to do so much because I'm trying to get this stuff off the ground. You know, which I gotta kind of plug, by the way. You know, if you guys can, you know, if you want to see more of the live streams, if you support me on Patreon or Gumroad, it does help me keep spending time with this stuff. And sorry for the shameless plug, but I got to do it. Just any way that I can keep making art and sharing, you know. But what else? Can you maybe show how to draw a face with glasses? Yes, and sorry again, Rick. I'm gonna try to do this each Wednesday, at 5 to 6, because it still allows me to sit back and have dinner with my family. So, my personal favorite is probably Cycra. Yeah, Cycra's got some good stuff as well. There's definitely pulls out. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I know. Me too. I definitely don't draw certain ones. Okay, so I got enough time to sketch out one more quick thing. So what would do you guys want to see the face with glasses, or what do you think? Make it easy on me. Yeah, thanks, Pop Culture. I appreciate that. Anybody? What's that one last thing? I guess I'll start sketching a face unless anybody chimes in with something else. So, quick face with glasses. So, same way I do a face, just basically a circle. Draw a wedge down at the bottom, like this. Bring it up to where the ears will be somewhere around in there. Hair blowing fabric. Yeah, I'm gonna probably have to pick up on that next week on something like that. Do the glasses. I need to work on reflections. Okay. So yeah, let me try to throw some glasses on this character real quick. So yeah, same rules apply. Obviously, measuring halfway down the face. This head, I'm picturing the head slightly tilted downward this way. So eyes right there. I like to draw like all the direction of the features. Nose, mouth, like this. You can do this little line for the cheeks. And so the eyes would generally go here. And I would probably still sketch in the eyes even when doing glasses because it just gives you another placeholder. So something like this. I'll just do a basic face so I don't spend too much time on that part. And then I would just, like anything else, I would just block it in at first. So I'd do like these squares if I needed to rough it out first. And even like something like this, as simple as this is, I would still pull reference on even glasses. I always forget the shape of them a little bit. So, you can just do the little parts that go on the nose like that. The little nose piece right there. And then, maybe some freaky crazy glasses. Like this. Is that too silly? And then one way to make glasses look dimensional is always do that little edge. So we're looking down at the glasses a little bit, so you put like a little bit of an edge to them. Yeah, I know I made these like ridiculously big. But here, you know what? Let me do this. Let me show you another way to do this. This is the beauty of digital. Let's get rid of this. Those were a bit funky anyways, weren't they? All right. Let's put our eyes back in there somewhat. Just kind of like placeholders. Let me get the brows in there. Okay, and let's just add a layer. Probably the best way to do it, because then you could like size things around more independently. I'll make these a little more traditional. Did you want these see-through, or did you want them like, you almost made it sound like you wanted them more reflective? Yeah, so it being on a separate layer is kind of easier because then I can just kind of keep moving these lines around. Not to mention, Sketchbook's got this cool little feature for a quick distort. So you can kind of do this if you have to. Move them around a bit. And then if you're going to do more of a reflective look, you could just kind of do this little deal off to the side. Little glare reflections or whatever, And I just, like anything else, I just keep building it up and playing with it till I get it right. Give him some cool hair. Draw him like a bit of a hipster or something. I don't even think you'd see that ear from this angle. That's another thing I always make a mistake on. I always throw the other ear in there, and then I'm like, keep looking. I'm like, I don't even think you'd see that. Some big old collars. maybe a little goatee there. Okay, yeah, I'm starting to digress here. So, yeah, so hopefully that gives you guys some, I guess I could have actually go around his ears like that. Hopefully that gives you guys some ideas there. I know it's a bit rough and I got to kind of wrap this up. It's going on 1 hour and 15, so I'm probably cutting into our dinner right now. So yeah, let me know what you thought of it. You know, what you'd like to see in future episodes. I'll try to keep doing this. It's going to be determined on, you know, like I said, how much I can justify it with work and scheduling and all that good stuff. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about it and what you'd like to see. And I appreciate you guys stopping by. Anything else? I gotta sign it so nobody tries to steal my work. "2016, baby." Oh yeah, appreciate having you guys. Thanks for stopping by, and it's always fun. I appreciate the support to the channel. Thanks very much. All right, everybody. So yeah, be sure to like, share, subscribe. I'll make sure that this video gets posted, and you know, more on the way. So talk to you soon. Keep drawing, keep having fun, and bye for now.